Hi everybody, I'm back and I'm back to talk about the counteroffer. So the counteroffer is actually such an awesome document because you can do so much with your offer by putting a counteroffer in place. So the buyer writes their offer, the agent submits it, and then the listing agent will go over that offer with the seller. So the point of the counteroffer is to come back with different terms, clarifying terms. I mean, you can change or add in anything. Do you guys know what I see so much going on with counteroffers? The listing agent fixing the buyer's mistakes in the offer. I did do a video on how to write a better offer, but a lot of times agents they miss stuff. There's so many fill-ins, they miss things, they didn't put the right information in place, they didn't check a box that needs to be checked. The point of the offer package is to tell escrow and the lender how to proceed with the transaction. So those terms need to be laid out, and they need to be laid out in a clear way that everybody is on the same page. Everyone knows what the seller is paying for, what the buyer is paying for, and it tells all parties how to process the rest of the transaction. So I have a list here, and I want to go over what the counteroffer can do. So the counteroffer can change anything in the original purchase offer. You just lay out the new terms, and you can even say, section 7A2, the seller will pay for that. You can make it very, very clear. Just follow the document. It has it laid out. You can be very specific in terms. You can increase the size of the earnest money deposit. You can lower the earnest money deposit. If the seller refuses to pay for certain reports, you can put seller will not pay for a termite report, and then the buyer then has the opportunity to review. So these terms are very, very important. You can change service providers. If the buyer wanted so-and-so for escrow, the seller then can come back in the counteroffer and say, no, we're going to go with this company or something. It's just a negotiation every step of the way. You can alter the closing or the possession date. You can modify contingency time frames. And then fixing the buyer's agent mistake. I have this down because I got one offer, and then I got a counteroffer, and the offer was for the address in there was a different address than on the counteroffer. And at first, I was completely confused and thought, are these two different houses? What's going on? I called the buyer's agent, and she put the wrong address in there. It was like a completely different street. So when the second that gets to escrow and the lender, you have a big problem. So we wrote an addendum to the contract saying all parties agree that the address is XYZ place, wherever. So those terms have to be laid out, and if they're not, someone's going to have to fix it, whether it's the transaction coordinator or one of the real estate agents. But escrow and the lender cannot process anything without those documents properly done. So it's good to get that done right away, and if the listing agent notices those kind of mistakes, they can easily fix it in the counteroffer. Very much so. So if you, on the counteroffer, on zip forms, there's a bunch of different ones, so you just select the one you want to use. If the terms that you're laying out, if there's not enough space, you can add an addendum. There's a text overflow addendum, or just use any addendum. It doesn't matter, just as long as it's that real estate contract. Make sure you correlate it with the original purchase offer, dated what day, and you add all your terms. And you can even put on the counteroffer, see attached addendum, number 1, dated whatever. So the point is to just be very specific, and if you run into a problem like not enough space to write your terms, add an addendum. Easily fixable. So I like to put this in here as a little negotiation tip, per se. As a listing agent, when you're writing a counteroffer, you want to kind of let the buyer's agent know that it's coming. You can, call them or whatever and just say, hey, I have a counteroffer. I'm just clarifying terms, or I changed this little thing, or you'll see there's a little change here. I think it's good form to let them know it's coming and to kind of pave the way for a smooth transaction, because a lot of times when the buyer's agent then gets that counteroffer, they're like, what? What are they countering? They immediately freak out. They immediately think it's this giant change or something. But it doesn't have to be. A counteroffer can be used to change something so minimal but very important to the deal. Obviously, if you're changing the price in a huge way or something like that, yes, it is a big deal, but you don't always have to use a counteroffer. You can use a counteroffer if you're changing something small. It actually benefits all parties greatly as soon as it's time to open escrow. So that's my little negotiation tip. I'm sure a lot of you do that, but if you don't, it's good form to kind of let them know that it's coming. So here's something else that I see all the time as a transaction coordinator. The agent will just send over the counteroffer, just one document, counteroffer. Well, where's the rest of it? Where's the original RPA and all of those opening documents? You have the agency, the other disclosures that come along with the initial offer. When the buyer writes an offer, that agent is putting together the full package. In order to counteroffer, the seller needs to sign all of those documents, all of them. And at the end, there's a little box that says the seller accepts this offer with the attached counteroffer. Check the box, and then you put your counteroffer with that. When you submit a counteroffer without the rest of the RPA, everybody still needs the RPA. You open escrow and it's like, well, where are the rest of the documents? Everyone's looking for the fully executed original offer and no one knows where it is. Well, the listing agent didn't have it signed or whatever, or it didn't come back. And I don't know if that's because agents think that they don't need it, or if they don't want to take the time to put the signature blocks down there, because it's like a 12-page document, so the seller then has to sign and review every page. So I think maybe people think it's a pain in the butt, but that document is just as important as the counteroffer. You need the full package. So so you definitely want to submit all of those documents together with your counteroffer. If that's not clear enough, don't send your counteroffer unless it's with all the other documents, the original offer, and that box checked, and everyone has signed it where they're going to sign it. Now, if you have a multiple counteroffer situation, that's awesome. It doesn't happen too often, I would say. A lot of real estate agents don't know how to use it, or they don't do it the right way. If the seller is responding to multiple offers, you want to go into Zip Forms and select the seller multiple counteroffer. You don't want to use the other one because there's different language. You don't want to sell the house twice. So it's important to use the seller multiple counteroffer. And here's something that everyone always asks. I always get this question. Do the terms have to be the same on every multiple counteroffer? No. They can be different terms. If you get one offer for $650 and another offer for $640, you can counter them each at different prices, kind of according to how they offered. And it doesn't have to be price. You can change various terms. The offers can be different. So you just want to make sure that you have it right and you submit the right one to the right person. And it can be a little bit tricky, but just read through the document and make sure you have it kind of squared away in the right way. Now, I would just have some finesse with a multiple counteroffer situation, because usually buyers get caught up in the urgency of the whole thing, or they think there's, a ton of other people that have offered. Well, it might only be just one other person. A lot of times the buyers will just say, they'll get scared and say, forget it. And then a lot of times they get just completely hectic over it. They sign away everything, not really thinking it through. And then once you're in escrow, they fall out. My screen just went to die. Okay. So, fun fact, the fallout rate for multiple counteroffer transactions is up to 50%. So you kind of want to be careful and have some finesse. You don't want to reply with a multiple counteroffer for some ridiculous price, and then the house doesn't appraise and it falls out. It can be very tricky. So if there's an all-cash offer, that's a little different. But if your buyer is getting a loan, you just want to watch those terms. Just be very careful with how you're responding in the multiple counteroffer. And a buyer's agent, you can be very careful explaining to your buyer what exactly they're signing away. So another little tidbit I like to make sure I tell agents about on the multiple counteroffer, make sure you sign for acceptance. If the seller is accepting one of those multiple counteroffers, there's a box at the bottom that says seller selection of multiple counter. If the seller is selecting one of those offers, there's a box at the bottom that says seller selection of multiple counteroffer. The seller needs to sign in that box, letting that buyer know that that is the buyer that is moving forward with the transaction. If the seller signs that box on multiple, then they've just sold the house twice, and you kind of have a bigger issue on your hands. So there's a little spot at the bottom of even a regular counteroffer that says acceptance. That's very important. That means the deal is done, we're accepting, we're moving forward with escrow. So you want to make sure that your seller or the agent in the regular multiple counteroffer is initialing for acceptance, because that just means it's final. You have the acceptance date. You can start your timeline from then. It's just something that gets overlooked a lot, and it shouldn't. It should definitely be initialed for acceptance. And on the multiple counteroffer, it's very important that if the seller is going with that particular buyer, then they sign in that box that says selection, and the other parties can go into backup mode if they want, or if that is used. So keeping all of these documents together can be very tricky. You've got an original offer, a counteroffer, and then perhaps the buyer is countering again, and then you have another counter. Sometimes there can be many, many counteroffers, and it's hard to keep all of those together, especially when they all go together. They all kind of need to be signed in order. You can't really have one without the rest. They all have to go together. So that's where I can come in. If you want to email those to me, I can keep them together, put them in order, make sure you have a full package when you open escrow. I don't mind at all if you keep me in the loop and email those over to me while you're in the negotiation process. I have no problem at all starting the transaction that early and making sure that those documents are ready to go. And as soon as escrow is open, the lender can get a set, escrow has a set, the other agent has a complete set, because everybody needs those documents. So to me, that's why you hire a transaction coordinator, to make sure that, you know, everything is squared away and checked and in compliance, and there's a full package ready to go. So I hope I covered some important basics about the counteroffer. I mean, most of the counteroffer situation, there's a lot of negotiation skills that go along with that. I feel like that's separate than the actual contract part of it. You need to make sure that your contract is on point, and then there's also the negotiation point. So, and I have a little bit of a gripe here. I know I griped about this on Instagram, and I don't really like griping, but do you know how many times a seller's agent, you'll submit an offer, and then the seller's agent will say, well, can you resubmit the offer with these terms, and these terms, and then it will get accepted? No, that's not how it works. You submit a counter offer. Offer, counter offer. You don't just tell the buyer's agent to rewrite the RPA according to how the seller wants it. To me, that's very bizarre. It's not genuine. It's not coming from the buyer. It's manipulative. And I don't know if it's just out of laziness or what, but it's just bizarre. If your seller gets an offer, that they don't like, but they want to entertain the buyer, send a counteroffer. It's not that difficult. If you need help or have a question, call me. But there's no sense in saying, can you rewrite your offer? I just think it's bad form. It's not how it's supposed to work. And if anyone has anything, if anyone wants to explain to me why that's going on or the reason for that, I'm totally open to hearing. But I just think it's bizarre, and I want the agents that do that to stop doing that. Just submit the counteroffer and go the way that this is supposed to go. Offer, counteroffer. So that's my little gripe there. I don't like to complain often, but sometimes I see stuff that drives me nuts, and I take the opportunity to complain about it a little bit. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope you guys now have a better understanding of the counteroffer and the multiple counteroffer situation. I hope you can do it better next time and be a better contract writer for your clients. And if you have any questions or anything, message me, call, text, or email, and I'm happy to talk with you. Anyways, happy real estate. Bye.